Texas, September 1944. The guards nicknamed them the Ice Dolls. 17 Japanese women prisoners who never smiled, never grumbled, never showed feelings. They walked through the camp like shadows in their simple gray clothes, polite but far away, their faces hard like rock. Akikosato was the best example of this. At 26, trained in traditional dance since she was little, she moved with stiff grace that made even the guards uneasy. She stood tall like a stick, eyes always looking down, voice soft and calm, almost a whisper. "Good morning, Sergeant Crawford," she said in careful, clear English as the officer walked by with breakfast trays. "Morning, ma'am." He tipped his hat. This confused Akiko every time. Americans treated prisoners with odd kindness, as if war hadn't made them enemies, as if being polite could fix the huge gap of pain between their countries. In the small barracks they shared, the 17 women got ready for another boring day at the textile factory, sewing army clothes in a plain concrete building for 12 hours, doing the same thing over and over, dull but safe. The work kept their hands busy and their minds blank. "Aiko," whispered her bunkmate, Yuki, a small 23-year-old with hands that never stopped moving. "Did you hear the rumors? They're changing our jobs next week." "Changed to what?" Aiko asked, keeping her voice flat, though her heart beat a little faster. "I don't know exactly, but I heard Sergeant Crawford ask the interpreters who of us knows about horses, like riding them." Aiko's stomach twisted, a risky feeling she quickly pushed down with practice skill. She had ridden once as a kid, maybe 7 or 8, at her rich uncle's big country home near Kyoto. The memory was clear even after 20 years. Wind blowing through her loose hair, the thrilling feel of speed, the pure joy of moving. She had laughed so loudly, so wildly, that her shocked mother scolded her for hours about being unladylike and rude. That was before everything changed, before war took over the world, before her life became about control and holding back. "None of us should sign up for anything with horses," said Fumiko firmly from across the small room. At 38, she was their unofficial leader, a Navy officer's widow whose authority came from her age and high-class manners. Her voice was strong like an order. "Riding horses with American men is wrong. It's risky in many ways." "Risky how?" Yuki asked innocently, tilting her head with real curiosity. "It makes us open to harm, Yuki. It's too exposed. It crosses lines we can't cross as prisoners." Fumiko's dark eyes looked around, making sure every woman understood. "We must keep our pride no matter what. It's the only thing they can't take." Aiko nodded, agreeing automatically, her face showing nothing, but deep inside, something she had buried for years under manners and sadness whispered one dangerous word: freedom. Before we go on with what happened to these amazing women, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. We'd love to hear from our viewers worldwide as we share this incredible hidden story together. At the morning meeting in the dusty courtyard, Sergeant Crawford stood on a wooden stage and spoke to the gathered prisoners. "Ladies, listen up, please. We got a request from Henderson Ranch, about 40 miles west. They're short on workers for the fall cattle roundup because of the war. The job involves horses, moving cattle across open land, fixing fences on horseback, and general ranch work. You'll get extra money in your accounts and much better food." Better food. Those words made Aiko's always empty stomach tighten with hunger. They'd been living on little rice, thin veggie soup, and old bread for 8 months since being captured. Crawford went on, his worn face kind despite his soldier look. "I need 5 volunteers to start. Anyone who's ridden before, even a little, it's your choice, and you'll be treated fairly." Total silence. The 17 women stood still as statues, barely breathing. Crawford sighed, let down but not shocked. "I know this is unusual, but the Henderson family are good folks. They want to help the war effort by hiring prisoners fairly. You'll be treated well. I promise." Still, no one moved. The silence grew awkward. Then Aiko heard her own voice, like it wasn't hers. "I rode before once long ago." Every head turned to her in shock. Fumiko's eyes glared with instant anger, making Aiko's skin tingle. "Great. Thank you," Crawford said, clearly relieved. "Anyone else?" Yuki's shaky hand went up slowly. Then Kimiko, a very quiet 22-year-old. Then Naoko, strong and practical. Finally, Sachiko, whose curiosity always beat her caution. 5 volunteers, 5 betrayers, according to Fumiko's harsh stare. That afternoon, an old Ford truck pulled up at the camp gates, engine loud. A real cowboy stepped out, face weathered by sun, hat sweaty, dusty boots with metal spurs that jingled with each step. He looked like he came straight from an American cowboy movie Aiko had secretly watched before the war. "Name's Jim Henderson," he said in a slow Texas voice, tipping his hat politely. "Welcome to my family's ranch, ladies. Let's see if you can stay on a horse without falling off." Aiko climbed into the truck bed with the other 4, sitting on rough wooden benches. As the truck drove away from Fort Bliss, she looked back through the dusty window. Fumiko stood stiff and alone in the courtyard, arms crossed tight, her face hard as stone, watching, judging, disapproving. The other 12 women stood behind Fumiko like loyal followers, their faces showing confusion or disapproval. Aiko felt something break inside her careful calm, something wild she'd locked away for years, something that felt like rebellion, something that felt scarily like hope. The truck bounced along rough dirt roads, leaving the city behind. The land changed slowly, dry scrub turning to golden grass stretching far to distant purple mountains. The sky was huge and blue, bigger than any sky Aiko had seen in Japan's mountains. The air smelled of dry sage, warm dirt, animal scent, and something free. After 40 minutes of rough travel, Henderson Ranch appeared like a dream, with big wooden buildings painted faded red, a huge corral made of rough wood, and horses, dozens of beautiful horses of every color, their coats shining in the late sun. Aiko's steady breathing stopped for a moment. She'd forgotten how stunning horses were, how strong and alive. "All right, ladies," Jim Henderson said, leading them to the biggest barn with easy confidence. "Let's start with the basics. Do any of you know which end of a horse bites and which kicks?" Yuki giggled suddenly, then covered her mouth, horrified. Japanese women weren't supposed to laugh at strange men's jokes. It broke every rule they'd learned since birth. But Jim just smiled warmly, not bothered. "Don't worry, darling. Laughing's no crime here. We like it." He introduced them to his small crew with friendly warmth. Bobby, a eager teen, maybe 17, too young for the army. Miguel, who spoke beautiful Spanish-tinged English, and old Pete, a tough man of unknown age who said he'd tamed over 1,000 wild horses in his life. "This is Daisy," Jim said, patting the neck of a beautiful chestnut horse with smart dark eyes and one white leg, gentle as a baby lamb, sweet as candy, perfect for beginners. "Aiko, you said you've ridden before." "Once, long ago when I was little." Her voice was barely a whisper, throat tight. "Let's see what you remember." He handed her worn leather reins gently. Aiko approached Daisy slowly, with respect, heart pounding. Daisy turned her big, soft brown eyes toward her. Something deep passed between them in that moment, a spark of understanding, animal to animal, soul to soul. "Go ahead, mount up when you're ready, and breathe." Aiko put her left foot in the stirrup, grabbed the smooth saddle with shaky hands, and swung her right leg over Daisy's back in one smooth move. The world changed instantly from up there, high above the dusty ground. She wasn't a prisoner, a widow, or a woman weighed down by culture. She was just a person on a horse. "Good seat, good instincts," Jim said, nodding as he walked around them. "You didn't lie about riding before. Try a slow walk around the corral. Squeeze lightly with your legs." Aiko squeezed gently. Daisy moved forward, smooth and steady. They circled the corral once, then again. Each step loosened something tight in Aiko's chest, something held in for years. "Looking good," Jim called. "Try a trot if you're brave." She squeezed harder. Daisy switched to a bouncy trot. Threw Aiko off at first, but then her body remembered. She found the rhythm up and down, up and down. Her body knew what her mind had forgotten. "You're smiling," Yuki said from the fence, voice full of wonder and worry. Aiko touched her face, surprised. She was smiling. "When did that happen?" "All right, your turn," Jim said to Yuki kindly. One by one, all 5 women rode horses for the first time as adults. Naoko fell off twice, laughing each time she hit the dirt. Sachiko cried from fear, then from joy. Kimiko whispered to her horse in fast Japanese, and it seemed to understand. By sunset, painting everything gold and orange, all 5 were riding. Not perfectly, but riding. Tomorrow morning early, Jim said as they got off. We need to move 300 cattle to the south pasture before winter. You'll ride with us like real ranch hands. Can you handle that? Yes, Aiko said firmly, surprising herself. The others nodded eagerly. On the truck ride back to Fort Bliss, they sat in quiet, not the heavy camp silence, but something alive, exciting. At the camp gates, Fumiko waited with the other 12 women behind her like soldiers. Her face was colder than ever. How was your day? Fumiko asked in sharp Japanese, each word like a knife. Fine, just work, Aiko said in English on purpose, a small rebellion. I see. And did this work make you smile so big, laugh like a common girl, forget who you are? Aiko met her angry eyes steadily. I didn't forget anything. I remembered something I'd lost. You've shamed us all. Shamed Japan. No, I rode a horse. That's all. But both knew it was more. Something big had changed. There was no going back. That night, on her thin mattress in the dark, Aiko couldn't sleep despite being tired. Her muscles ached nicely from riding. Her face hurt from smiling. For the first time since her capture 18 months ago, she felt something besides numbness. She felt alive, scary alive. Morning came fast. Aiko woke before dawn to find Fumiko blocking the barracks door, arms crossed, face grim. We need to talk about yesterday, Fumiko said coldly to the 5 riders. We need to talk about what really happened at that ranch. We rode horses and moved cattle, Yuki said nervously, twisting her hands. Just work, like we said. No, you acted shamelessly with enemy men like low-class girls. You laughed loudly, smiled without covering your mouths, forgot all the dignity our culture gave you. Fumiko's voice was sharp as broken glass. Do you think your families in Japan would be proud? Think Japan would cheer for women acting like American ranch girls? Aiko stood slowly. We worked hard. We moved livestock. We did nothing shameful. You smiled, Aiko. I saw your face last night. You looked happy. Fumiko said happy, like it was poison, like happiness was betrayal. Have you forgotten we're prisoners of war? Forgotten your husband, T-shirt, died honorably at Midway? How dare you smile while his body lies in the ocean? The words hit like punches. Aiko's husband, Lieutenant Akikosato, was a Navy hero. She'd been a widow for 2 years and 4 months. Don't, Aiko whispered, voice cracking. Don't what? Don't remind you of reality? That joy is betrayal? Fumiko stepped closer, aggressive. Every smile you give Americans dishonors every Japanese soldier who died. Every laugh spits on their graves. Aiko slapped her hard. The sound echoed like a shot. Fumiko stumbled back, hand on her red cheek, shocked. My husband wanted me to live, Aiko said, voice shaking with anger. His last letter before Midway told me to survive, to find light in the dark. He wouldn't want me living like a corpse forever. You don't know what he'd want. He's dead, Fumiko said. He's gone, and I'm alive. Yesterday, for the first time in 2 years, I felt alive, not just breathing. Is that so bad? The truck horn sounded outside, Sergeant Crawford calling. Aiko pushed past Fumiko and walked into the morning light. The other 4 followed, not looking back. At Henderson Ranch, Jim had 5 horses saddled, steam rising from their noses in the cool air. Morning, ladies. Ready to move cattle today? They mounted faster than yesterday, more sure. Jim led them across the prairie to where hundreds of cattle grazed, their breath making small clouds. Simple job today, Jim said, adjusting his hat. Ride around the herd slowly. Guide them to that gate over there. Stay calm. Don't scare them. Trust your horse. Bobby and Miguel took spots at opposite ends of the herd. Jim placed the 5 women around the cattle. Aiko, you're with me on the right. Yuki, left with Bobby. Others, follow Miguel. They moved slowly. Riding across open land felt like flying, like Aiko's childhood dreams. Wind tugged her hair, which she left loose. The sun warmed her face. Daisy moved like water, responding to every small shift. Suddenly, a young cow ran off toward open land. Without thinking, Aiko urged Daisy forward. They galloped fast, cutting off the cow, turning it back to the herd. Yeehaw! That's how it's done, Jim shouted, impressed. Aiko laughed, a real laugh from deep inside, free and wild. It shocked and thrilled her. You're a natural, Bobby called. Where'd you learn to ride like that? I don't know, Aiko said, breathless. It just felt right. They worked 6 hours, moving cattle, fixing fences, watering horses at a cold creek. By noon, Aiko's careful control was gone like morning mist. She joked with Miguel about his horse's stubbornness, taught Yuki how to ride better, even sang a quiet Japanese lullaby from her childhood. At lunch under a tree, Jim brought sandwiches and lemonade. You ladies are doing great work. Honestly, I didn't expect you to learn so fast. Why not? Sachiko asked boldly, braver on horseback. Jim shrugged. Prejudice, I guess. I was told Japanese people are cold, formal, don't show feelings. We're taught showing emotion in public is weak, Aiko explained carefully. Especially for women. We're supposed to be perfect, controlled, like dolls. That sounds exhausting, Jim said. It is. The truth surprised her. Jim looked at the 5 sweaty, dirty, smiling women. Out here on horseback under this big sky, no one cares about control. The horse doesn't judge. The land doesn't judge. You can be yourself. That evening, back at camp, Aiko feared Fumiko's anger. But something had changed. 3 more women, Maro, Hana, and Kazumi, stood with Fumiko, curious, not judging. We want to volunteer, Maro said firmly. For the ranch work, we want to try. Fumiko's face showed fury and betrayal, her hands clenched tight. Aiko smiled warmly at the 3. Come tomorrow. Just bring courage. Within a week, 12 of the 17 women worked at the ranch. In 2 weeks, 16 did. Only Fumiko stayed behind, alone in the empty barracks, choosing isolation. The change was clear and surprising. Yuki, once shy, now galloped bravely. Sachiko learned to rope fences. Naoko could calm nervous horses with patience and soft words. Even quiet Kazumi and Hana sang traditional songs while riding under the big sky. Aiko changed most of all. She stopped looking down. Her voice got stronger, and she smiled easily, looking younger. You look different, Sergeant Crawford said one morning. Lighter, freer. I feel different, Aiko said honestly. Like I was asleep for years and finally woke up. One evening, Jim made a surprise announcement. We're having a small rodeo next Saturday, a local tradition. I want you ladies to perform, show the town what you've learned. The idea hung heavy. Performing meant being seen, judged by hundreds of American eyes. It meant choosing who they wanted to be. A rodeo for the whole town? Yuki's eyes widened with fear. They'll stare like we're zoo animals. Or they'll see you as amazing riders, Jim said gently. Your choice. No pressure. That night in the barracks, the 16 women whispered nervously. Only Fumiko sat alone, facing the wall, ignoring them. What if we fail? Sachiko asked quietly. What if we embarrass ourselves? What if we're good enough? Aiko said, surprising herself. Mariko shook her head. It's not about skill. It's about what it means. Performing says we've changed. Maybe we have, Naoko said softly. Maybe that's not bad. Fumiko spoke, her voice empty. Japanese officials visit next month. They'll ask about our behavior as prisoners. Fear spread through the room. They'll hear about the rodeo, Fumiko said. They'll hear about Japanese women doing tricks for Americans, acting like trained monkeys. Her voice broke. Do you know what they'll call us? What? Aiko asked, though she knew. Collaborators, traitors, women who forgot Japan for comfort. Tears were on Fumiko's cheeks. My daughter's in Tokyo. She's 12. When the war ends, what do I tell her? That her mother rode horses and smiled while Japan burned. The question stayed unanswered in the heavy silence. Aiko lay awake, thinking of her husband Tishi's last letter, hidden in her things. She'd read it 1,000 times. Aiko, if I don't come back, promise me something. Live. Not just survive. Truly live. Find joy wherever you can. That's how you honor me. Not through grief, but by living the life I can't. At dawn, she decided. I'm performing in the rodeo, she told the silent barracks. Not for America, not against Japan, for myself. Because since Tisha died, I feel alive, and I won't say sorry for that. Yuki stood. I'm performing too. Then Sachiko, then Naoko. One by one, all 16 stood. Only Fumiko sat, eyes heartbroken. Then I've lost you all, she whispered. No, Aiko said gently. You just haven't found yourself yet. The week before the rodeo was full of hard practice. Jim planned a big routine, synchronized riding, sharp turns, even risky trick riding that made Aiko's heart race with fear and excitement. Stand on the saddle at a gallop, Jim said. Sounds crazy, but you can do it. Trust your horse. Aiko stood on Daisy's back as the horse ran fast. The world spun. Then she found balance and felt like she was flying, arms wide, wind in her face. She'd never felt stronger, freer, more herself. But doubts came in quiet moments. What would Japanese officials say? Would her family reject her? Was joy worth the cost? One evening, Sergeant Crawford brought news. Japanese officials arrived 2 weeks after the rodeo. They're asking about your work and behavior. Will they punish us? Kimiko asked, voice small. Crawford paused. I don't know, but I'll say you've done nothing wrong. You've worked hard, stayed honorable. After he left, Fumiko spoke to them for the first time in weeks. You can still back out. Cancel the show. Say you're sick. We're not backing out, Aiko said firmly. Then you're braver than me, Fumiko said softly. Or more foolish. I can't tell. The night before the rodeo, Aiko couldn't sleep. She found Fumiko sitting outside under the stars, alone. Can I sit? Aiko asked. Fumiko shrugged. They sat quietly for minutes. I'm scared, Fumiko admitted. Of changing, of losing who I was. My husband died believing I was a certain woman. Dignified, controlled, perfect. If I change, does his memory of me die? Maybe, Aiko said gently, he loved the real you under all that control. Maybe he'd love seeing you free. I don't know how to be free. Neither did I until I rode a horse. Fumiko's eyes filled with tears. Is it too late for me? Come to the rodeo tomorrow just to watch. See what's possible. Fumiko nodded slowly. Maybe I will. Rodeo morning was clear and hot. Henderson Ranch turned into a festival, with wooden stands full of hundreds of townspeople, colorful flags, smells of popcorn and grilled sausages. Aiko's hands shook as she saddled Daisy. This was real. No turning back. Ready? Jim asked, standing beside her. No, but I'm doing it, she said. He grinned. That's the spirit. The 16 women gathered in matching cowboy outfits Jim had made. Denim shirts, leather vests, bandanas. Aiko barely knew herself in the mirror. I'm going to throw up, Yuki whispered, face pale. Don't you dare, Naoko said firmly. We've practiced 100 times. We know this. The announcer's voice boomed. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting a special show, the only all-Japanese women's riding team in America. Give them a big Texas welcome. They rode out in perfect formation, 16 horses moving as one. The crowd cheered, some wildly, others stunned, many pointing and whispering. The routine started, perfect figure eights, synchronized turns that made people gasp, sharp stops kicking up dust. Then the trick riding. Aiko stood on Daisy's saddle at full gallop, arms spread like wings. The crowd roared. Yuki slid off one side of her horse, then jumped back up. Sachiko did a risky vault, landing perfectly. Aiko expected judgment, mockery. Instead, she heard only cheers, real and excited. Something big shifted inside her. These people didn't see enemies. They saw 16 women doing something hard and beautiful. They saw humans, not nations. The routine ended with all 16 rearing their horses together in a dramatic line. The crowd exploded, everyone standing, whistling, clapping as they rode out. Aiko's eyes searched the crowd and found Fumiko at the fence, tears on her face. Their eyes met.
Fumiko mouthed, I'm sorry.
After the show, townspeople crowded them. Kids begged to pet the horses. Women asked about Japan with real interest. Men shook their hands, calling them amazing and inspiring. An old rancher told Aiko, never seen riding like that. You ladies outdid most cowboys. Thank you, Aiko said, voice breaking. A young mother with a baby touched her arm. Thank you for showing us people are people, no matter where they're from. That evening, something amazing happened. Fumiko approached Jim Henderson slowly. Is it too late? She asked quietly. To learn to ride? Jim smiled. Ma'am, it's never too late to learn. The next day, all 17 women rode together for the first time. Fumiko was scared, holding the saddle tightly, but she tried. When her horse took its first steps, she smiled. A small, shy smile, but real. 3 weeks later, Japanese officials came to Fort Bliss. The 17 women had interviews in a plain office. Questions came fast, translated carefully. Did you keep Japanese dignity as prisoners? Were you treated right by Americans? Did you do anything improper for Japanese women? Aiko faced a stern official with a blank face. She chose her words carefully, knowing they mattered. We kept our humanity, she said clearly, which I believe is the truest dignity. Explain. We had chances to work, use our bodies and minds, learn new skills. We stayed Japanese in our hearts while surviving. We heard about a public show or rodeo, the official said, eyes narrowing. Performing for Americans. Not performing, riding, showing skills we worked hard for, Aiko said, meeting his gaze. Would you rather we sat idle, wasting away? I'd rather you remembered who you are. I never forgot, but I also learned who I could be. Those don't conflict. The official wrote notes, face unreadable. You may go. Outside, the women gathered nervously. What did you say? Yuki whispered. The truth, that we survived with dignity. After all interviews, the officials gave no quick judgment. They left, promising a report later. Months passed. The women kept working at the ranch. The war grew worse, then ended suddenly with atomic bombs that chilled everyone. Victory came with horror. Celebrations mixed with grief. The 17 women in Texas waited to learn their fate. Heroes or shamed survivors. In October 1945, a telegram came to Fort Bliss. Sergeant Crawford read it to the women. All Japanese prisoners approved to return home. Ships leave San Francisco December 1st. No charges. Return with honor. No charges. Return with honor. The women cried from relief, fear, and mixed feelings. What will we find there? Sachiko asked, crying. Will anything be left? Naoko added. Will anyone want us back? Fumiko spoke softly. We'll face it together, whatever comes. On their last day at Henderson Ranch, Jim gave each woman a photo of them on horseback, smiling in the Texas sun. So you remember, he said, voice heavy. You were brave, chose to live fully, even as prisoners. Be proud. The ship to Japan left in early December. The 17 women stood on deck, watching America fade into fog. They carried little, but each held Jim's photo like a treasure. Japan was ruined, cities rubble, millions dead. The empire they knew was gone, replaced by American rule and deep national shame. Some families welcomed them, others turned away, unable to accept daughters and wives who survived when so many died. The stigma of being prisoners, of living instead of dying, followed them. Aiko found her parents' home burned down. Her mother was dead. Her father barely knew her. You're so different, he said, confused. So bold. I learned to ride horses in America, she said simply. He didn't understand, but Aiko kept the photo on her wall. Sometimes at night, she'd close her eyes and remember the wind in her hair, Daisy's strong steps, the moment she stood on a galloping horse and felt fully alive. Years passed. Japan rebuilt. The 17 women spread across the country, carrying their secret story. Some married. Some never spoke of their time as prisoners. Some struggled with surviving in a culture that valued death over dishonor. But sometimes they'd meet quietly in tea houses, sharing stories, laughing about learning to ride, remembering Jim's patience and Bobby's excitement. Do you ever regret it? Fumiko asked years later. The rodeo? Aiko thought hard. No, because it taught me something big. Joy isn't betrayal. Choosing life over death, happiness over pain, isn't weakness. It's the bravest choice. In 1987, a historian studying POW camps found the photo. He tracked down the women, now old, and asked for their story. Some refused, still ashamed, but Aiko agreed. She spoke for 3 hours, voice strong despite her age. People think prisoners just suffered, she told him. But we also lived. We found moments of kindness. We learned enemies could be kind. We found parts of ourselves we didn't know existed. And the horses? He asked. Aiko smiled, the same smile from 40 years ago. The horses freed us. Not from the camp, from ourselves, from the rules and limits we carried our whole lives. The historian published their story, caused debate in Japan. Some called them heroes, others traitors. But Aiko didn't care about labels. She'd chosen in 1944 to ride despite fear, laugh despite grief, be fully human despite being a prisoner. That choice saved her, not just physically, but in her soul. The real prison wasn't the barbed wire in Texas. It was the cage they'd built inside themselves. The expectations, the shame, the idea that showing feelings was weak. The horses didn't just teach them to ride, they taught them to be free. And 17 ice dolls melted under the Texas sun, learning they'd been human all along. If this hidden story touched you, subscribe to hear more amazing tales from World War II that change how we think about courage, dignity, and what it really means to survive.